Welcome. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. My name is George and I'm coming to you from Chelsea, Quebec. Now, July's video is going to be exclusively about a modification that I made to my finger joint jig. So if you're familiar with the finger joint jig, you'll probably appreciate this little modification. If you're not familiar with it, it's probably better if you see the video on the finger joint jig. It's the first one in my channel, but I'm not chasing anyone away. If you want to watch this one first and then watch the other one second, that's all fine with me. Now, if you've been following along in the comments, you've probably seen that I'm happy with all aspects of this jig. Except the fact that you have to keep track of your cuts by counting off the spaces very carefully. It's easy to lose track and it's easy to make a mistake with this particular jig. And I've had a couple of great suggestions about what to do about it. Paul Johnston wrote right away and said lay a template over top with lines at intervals and then follow those along as you make the spaces. And just this week, someone whose name I hope I'm not butchering it, Knike, I hope that's how you pronounce your name, wrote with his suggestion. Now he's using the metric equivalent to this. So this one is 1 inch diameter threaded rod with 1/8 inch pitch. His is 25 millimeters with 3 millimeter pitch. So if you were to look at those two by eye, you wouldn't be able to see the difference. It's virtually the same thing. And what he says he does is he lays a magnet on the table saw top and then uses a little wooden spacer to bump over to the magnet as he makes the cuts. And well, when I read that comment, I had gone upstairs for a little afternoon siesta, read his comment and said screw the siesta, came back downstairs and started fishing around for speakers or some other source of magnets where I could try his method. And it is an extra little step, but very easy to get used to, and so I decided to implement it. And I implemented it in a slightly different way. And it's his principle and I'm truly grateful for the suggestion. But I implemented his using a little wooden stop. So let me bring you around to this side and show you the action of that little flipper, we can call it. I have the camera sitting roughly where the operator would be, so it's behind the table saw, but it's at a bit of an angle. The jig is in place, so here's the rear portion nestled into the miter slots. And here's the front portion. I've added an extension along with a little flipper that pivots on a nail. Now, let's say you want to make 1/4 inch wide teeth with 1/4 inch wide spaces. Typically, the way to do that would be to use a 1/4 inch dado stack and make movements of 1/2 inch between cuts. So this little flipper has different distances to the pivot point. The distance from the nail to this front edge is 1/2 inch longer than the distance from the nail to this edge here on the side. And you can position the thing wherever you want to. So, pretending now for a moment that we're making 1/4 inch spaces and fingers, we want to prepare the fence to stop us at 1/2 inch intervals. Now the fence is heavy, so I'm not clamping it in, I'm just leaving it in place. And I set myself up for a 1/2 inch motion by going to this stop. I bring it back to get the gap. I make the cut. And now I want to move over half an inch, I just go until I bump into the fence. For the next cut, I set the half-inch gap, bring it back to restore the space, make the next cut, and when I'm done, I'll move over another half inch. Now, if it's really a half an inch, we should have this location move over 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth. And I think that's what happened. Okay, I'm going to lay out a flipper for a simple configuration of box joint. That's with evenly spaced teeth and spaces, 1/4 inch wide tooth, a 1/4 inch wide space. With that configuration in mind, every movement of the jig is going to be half an inch. So to lay out the flipper, we'll start by deciding that the nail hole is going to be here. And the reference edge, let's just make it arbitrarily 1/4 of an inch away. Could be any distance you like, but the flipper should be pretty small overall. Now, if you want to bump it over 1/2 inch at a time, the distance from the nail hole to the next edge needs to be half an inch greater than that first reference distance. So if the reference distance is 1/4 inch, we need 1, 2, 3/4 of an inch to get to this edge. So there's 2 of the distances to the edge for this flipper. Now, you realize that, yeah, in going from this edge to this edge, we've asked for a half inch bump. Well, if we wanted to use half inch teeth with half inch spaces, we would need 1 inch movements. And we've got another edge that's going to be out here somewhere. So if we make this edge an inch away more from the pivot point than this one, we'll now be able to cut 1 inch intervals, in other words half inch teeth with half inch spaces, by using this edge against that one. And all we need to do is add an inch from this one. So this one is 3/4 of an inch away. We'll make this one 1 3/4 of an inch away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll put it out here. And we'll just, we won't bother making it be useful for yet another distance. We'll just set off the bottom someplace convenient, let's say half an inch down from the pivot point. So what we have now as dimensions for the flipper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 1 1/4 inches in this dimension, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 inches in the horizontal dimension. And the nail hole, as we said, is over here. So it's 1/4 inch from this edge, half an inch up from the bottom, 1 3/4 of an inch away from the right side, and 3/4 of an inch down from the top. Now, in working the flipper, you're going to have the fence butted up against the left-hand edge, whichever of these turns out to be on the left each time. And you want to rotate the thing back to show the gap each time. So to work that out, make it easy for the device to rotate from one position to the next, you'll want to carve out some radiuses in some of these corners. So this over here is 1 3/4 of an inch between the edge and the hole. So you'll use a 1 3/4 of an inch radius and nip off that corner. Over here you've got 3/4 of an inch to this point, and so you'll want to put a 3/4 inch radius to nip off that corner. So that lets you use these two sides together and lets you use these two sides together. These two will give you 1/4 inch teeth with 1/4 inch spaces. These two will give you 1/2 inch teeth with 1/2 inch spaces. You could configure this fourth edge, to work with this one to make even bigger spaces just by choosing the dimensions, as long as there's space on your jig to do that. And you can come up with other configurations that would let you, for example, combine a 1/4 inch wide tooth with 1/2 inch sized gaps by making the motion 3/4 of an inch, and other variations like that. But let's just keep it simple with this. Now you might be wondering about what kind of precision we need for this flipper. As Nike pointed out in his comment, all of the precision comes from clenching the two threaded rods together, and none of it comes from the actual flipper. Remember, you've got about 1/8 of an inch of slop as those teeth mesh into each other. So if anything, I would recommend making the flipper with dimensions a little bit on the shy side, so that when you bump up against the fence and the teeth mesh themselves together, they'll have the effect of pulling the jig away from the fence instead of pushing it in. Right? So if you make your measurements a little on the shy side, you'll get a flipper that works really well. So I'm happy with how the jig works now, all aspects of it. I think we've pretty well eliminated the problem of needing to pay attention as you make the cuts. With any luck, this will be the end of videos about the jig. Let me finish with a couple of things coming down the line. One of the projects that I'm involved with is the planning of Woodworks 2016. Woodworks 2016 is a physical conference. It's going to be held in September 23rd to 25th in Perth, Ontario. So it's Perth, Ontario, not Perth, Australia. So folks who live in Western Quebec and Eastern Ontario might be interested in this sort of thing. Of course, everyone is welcome from around the world. I'll put the URL, the website info that you need in the comments, and those will take you directly to the Woodworks 2016 webpage. You can learn more about it. As far as videos go, I have 2 videos that are well underway for August and September. For August, I'm doing a little experiment on backyard milling. So the kind of infrequent milling that somebody might do once or twice in a woodworking lifetime. The idea behind it is, what can you get by with on the cheap and still get good results? So that'll be coming up in August. For September, I'll just give you the title. I'll be building a stool box. Leave me a comment about what you think a stool box might contain. Bye for me for now.